Today it has to be the hottest, the hottest day in the history of Ireland. It's crazy, crazy hot. It's like 20 to 11 at night now. I think it's Friday, the 11th of July. It's 20 to 11 at night, and I am like out of the shower for 10 minutes and I'm sweating already. It's a hard day in work in this weather, man. But I'm still addicted to hot coffees, regardless, regardless of the temperature or the day that's in it. And I've come across this strange phenomenon, but it's not a phenomenon whatsoever. It's just an analogy that I have come to notice in the last few years when I'm on my way to my usual shop for my coffee shop in the morning prior to work for my fix as such, because I cannot function. I feel like neurologically I'm not revving at 100% unless I have caffeine in me, right? And I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Big deal. So anyway, I'm going to get my coffee. And this isn't the only instance that I noticed this, but it's just one that springs to mind. I don't even really know why I'm talking about it, but anyway. You walk by, there's a bus stop there, and you walk by the bus stop, and it's a busy bus stop. There'd be like 20 people there all heading into town to their jobs or whatever. I'm talking about 8 a.m. And the 20 people are all in close proximity, all beside each other, but they're not even aware of each other's presence because they're all just staring down into their chest, staring into the black abyss of their phone, doom scrolling through infinite amounts of useless information. Now, I don't know what they're looking at, but if I had to gamble, it would just be your usual garbage, and we're all guilty of it. I am not here to judge. I try and reduce that myself, but I just found it funny that we've I think we must have lost a bit of our social ability as a result of this, because we're all so sucked into our phones. We've befriended technology now. Technology worked for us up until these days. Technology worked for us, and now I feel like we work for technology because we're so engrossed in it, and it's coming at an expense of human interaction. All that because of a coffee. I'm not here to talk about me going to coffee shops today anyway. It's just something I noticed on the way into work this morning. But it is a bit weird. And it did get me thinking, like, we're living in a cage, constricted through our addictions and our behaviours with the phones and the lifestyle we're living, but there's no actual physical barriers around us. It's like we're digging ourselves into these holes and we don't even know it because we're getting the little buzz off doom scrolling. And that just got me thinking, like, in the last few weeks especially, are we going to be an experiment, or are we an experiment, and are we going to be like a thesis for somebody in years to come to display where it all went wrong with technology and human beings? But anyway, I am here to talk about an experiment in itself, ironically, and it was an experiment undertaken for 4 years between 1968 and 1972 by a man called John B. Calhoun, who was a behavioral researcher in America. And in order to try and understand human behavior, this man would do experiments on rodents to see if he would manipulate the world of rodents to see how they would react, to try and gain an understanding how we may react under certain circumstances without experimenting on us, because even back then that would be deemed unethical after World War II anyway. So he created this experiment called Universe 25, and it became quite infamous. I remember hearing about it in college maybe 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, and thinking, oh, I must read up on that someday. And now you have to listen to me ramble about it. But yeah, he created this, what he would call a utopia. And what a utopia is a paradise as such. He created a mouse utopia, this large residential area for mice. I mean, it was probably about 4 square feet, so 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot, which is massive obviously for mice. And it had like 256 nest areas in it. It had unlimited amounts of food, unlimited amounts of water, unlimited amount of bedding, comfort, warmth. It was 100% free from predators, and it was 100% free from disease and danger. So it was deemed a utopia in the sense that people, or mice should I say, could live their life with no fear, anxiety, drama, hunger or stress. And that kind of sounds like the dream life for most of us, doesn't it? And his aim was to see what would happen if utopia did in fact exist for these mice. So we had that 9 square feet it was, of floor space with the 256 nesting boxes, as I mentioned. Again, another thing to help it be free from disease, it was cleaned on the regular. And the first phase, there's 4 phases to this experiment. The first phase only involved 8 mice, just 8 little mice in this huge area with 256 spaces for them to nest in. So it was like they had the whole theme park to themselves. And this first phase was called the Garden of Eden, because they have everything, they have freedom, they have space, and they can do whatever they want. Free in a totally harmonious environment and free to socially bond with no stress. So everything was in order. Again, there was no fear, no hunger. A man-made utopia. Now, we've heard the man-made utopia before. Normally doesn't end well for men. Will it end well for mice? Let's see. Well, you will soon find out. So that lasted for 100 days, that phase. These 8 mice went in, and mice breed faster than a motherfucker. A mouse can have a litter of mice every 3 or 4 weeks. And I think they can have like 10 or 12 mice. So you do the maths on that. And when you've got these 8 mice, 4 males, 4 females dropped in during this first phase, with no stress and nothing to worry about, all they're going to do is reproduce. So that's what they done. And from day 0 to 100, we've seen a massive growth in the population of mice once they settled down. And the next phase then is where you see the rapid growth. We got up to 50 mice from day 0 to 100. And then it started accelerating rapidly. We have now moved on from the Garden of Eden, because the garden is now getting a bit smaller because we have a lot more mice in it, and they all got to find their own safe space. And it's still perfectly fine at the moment, but we get to day 100 and we now have a population which starts at about 50, but during this phase, which lasts for about 215 days, I believe, day 100 to day 315 as far as I remember, the population of mice at this stage doubled every 55 days. Like bang, 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 like huge multiplications. So as the population rapidly blows up from 50 to 620, we start to get some differences in personalities, and we start to get social hierarchies, and we start to get dominators, and we start to get leaders of the pack, and territory becomes a thing, because space is now not infinite. Space is becoming finite. So the big dogs are going to take the best space, the space close to where the food and the drink is supplied, right? Because that's what we would do as humans. We always set up, traditionally, I'm talking history books here, close to rivers, oceans, close to plants, stuff like that, close to animals we can hunt, because that's the best, safest place, the most productive place to be. So that the more dominant mice set up nests closest to the food, and the less dominant mice started to get edged to the periphery, pushed to the side a little bit, still able to get access to food and drink and everything else, but back of the line stuff going on, do you know what I mean? So territory became a thing. Stress started to grow in Universe 25. That's what they called it, Universe 25. And John Calhoun would be looking into that universe every day, studying. He knew all these mice behaviours, and he was rapidly watching to see if any behaviours changed every day. So he was studying this like really detailed, and he could see that stress cracks were beginning to form during phase 2, because they're starting to be on top of each other, and you're starting to see some mice just withdraw from society. Some mice are starting to move to the side and not socialise. Some mice are starting to get hyper aggressive. But it's all currently within a range that is not affecting the society as a whole detrimentally. Everything is still functioning. There's just some areas of Universe 25 that are starting to wilt a little bit, much like our society, much like our society. But the show goes on, and then we move into the next act. Well, I'll give you a little bit more detail on that phase, because it has a lot of days from day 100 to 315. And he did term that we went from the Garden of Eden in phase 1 to what he termed the boom in phase 2. So there was still room in the enclosure, still room in Universe 25 during phase 2. But the mice, these stopped feeling like they belonged, if that makes any sense to you. Probably because when everything is given to you on a plate, quite literally, it doesn't taste so good anymore. You know what I mean? You didn't have to fight for it. And I'd say that's what was happening there. And success bred hierarchy, as I mentioned. So bullies start to show, dominators start to show, and making the rules as such. The powerful took more, and the rest took whatever was left over, which sometimes was nothing. Some mice just ruled over. Now that was probably a size thing, it was probably just their character. And others were pushed, as I said, to the margins. And then we move on now to Act 3. And Act 3 is where things start to get a little bit more interesting, a little bit more macabre, and a little bit more dysfunctional. That was from day 315 to 560, so we're looking at around 240 days again. This is a 4-year experiment, so this is a long, very intricate study. And the population, even though we've got all that drama that I'm talking about in phase 2, you can't stop these mice going at it, right? So the population jumps from 620 to 2,200, which is like, can you imagine 2,200 mice downstairs in your house? Do you know what I mean? That's how many was there. Like, there's videos, they're like crawling all over each other. There's still space, but strangely enough, they're starting to almost be in hives and packs, and they're all hanging out. Then they're fighting and separating and coming back together. It's very erratic. You can feel there's a tenseness in it. But it's also worth mentioning that Universe 25 was actually built big enough to comfortably home 3,000 mice. So even at 2,200, if society came together and lived as one, this would not have been a problem. But to picture 2,200 mice down at your feet, it's just, ugh, man, it must have stank. So the enclosure capacity, as I said, it could hit 3,000, but it didn't. It was at 2,200. And it's here where we start to see some strange behaviours and mannerisms and characters evolve. And there's Calhoun, he was struck by a group of young male mice during this phase that he termed them the beautiful ones. And the beautiful ones were these mice that they climbed up to a higher level in Universe 25. I don't mean from a ranking, I mean physically. They climbed up a little bit and they nested away from the ground level. But they nested individually, just males. They all nested themselves, and they spent the whole day, every day, they'd eat a little bit and then they'd go back up. They never socialised, they never hung out with other mice. They just went back up to their own spot and they just groomed themselves all day, every day, and then they'd just sleep. And Calhoun was saying that these beautiful ones to look at were like the picture perfect mouse. The symmetry was perfect in their face, their ears, their fur coat was like mink. It was worth money. These mice looked like perfect, but they were shells. They were empty inside, hollow. They were. He said they were almost like zombies. Stupid, he said. In fact, and they were like so socially withdrawn that these beautiful ones showed no interest in reproduction or female mice. They were just caught up in their own little existence, which is very weird. And if you look back down to the ground level of Universe 25, where there's all other chaos and collapse going on, the females who have bred up to this level of 2,200 mice started to act really strange, and they started to forget how to be mothers, and they stopped reproducing. They started to stop reproducing, and they became violent, and the females would get hyper aggressive, attacking males around them. And when they did have litters, they would reject them. They would actually just reject them. They wouldn't feed them, they'd ignore them. And towards the mid to the end of this phase, the average survival rate of a litter for females mice was around 10%. So if they had 10, one might survive, because the emotional attachment to to their own children had gone. It's like they didn't feel the need to have a legacy anymore. And on top of that, the male mice at the same time showed a lot less interest in the females. It was like their nature was shifting. It's very interesting. And I think Calhoun, he termed it the behavioural sink. As things sank and started to collapse, and something had changed. It wasn't the crowding that caused this collapse. It wasn't overcrowded. As I said, it could hold 3,000. It was a behavioural shift in mouse society in Universe 25. The mice, they stopped functioning like mice and they started functioning like zombies or prisoners or mannequins or shells or ghosts of themselves. They forgot where they were, they forgot what they had to do, and they forgot what they were fighting for. Or maybe in fact they remembered what they were fighting for. Maybe they remembered the fact that they had nothing to fight for. For do not forget, everything they required was handed to them. They were living in a utopia, remember? Where nothing is hunger doesn't exist. A hunger for anything, literally hunger for food, or a hunger for safety, or a hunger for a home. None of that exists. But maybe, just maybe, they needed some sort of hunger in order to have a meaning or a purpose. So, as I said, the mothers stopped raising their young, just stopped it. In fact, sometimes they ate their young. Sometimes they actually ate their own young. Cannibalism started to rear its ugly head. Mating slowed down fairly severely. I mean, who wants to sleep with a woman that's eating her own children, right? Fights became random, as in mice would just fight, like just from 0 to 100, snap and start eating each other's tails, fighting. Riots would arise, and then everything would settle down, and then a riot would arise for no logical reason, because remember, there's nothing to fight over. They're not fighting over any sort of food or anything. They're just fighting out of frustration, I'd imagine. And it became quite brutal. It became quite meaningless. And then something even stranger happened. That group of males emerged. The males I was talking about. The beautiful, clean, unscarred, unfeathered. The beautiful ones. They didn't even bother fighting. They didn't bother mating. They just looked down at everyone else and just went, yeah, it's not for me. I'm perfect. They didn't engage with anything. And they spent their time just grooming, eating, sleeping. Again, zero purpose. No violence, no drive, just emptiness. A stillness. An emptiness, a hollowness, a nothingness, just deeply rooted in these mice, a very unnatural existence they now lived in, whereas nature had shifted because mice were not used to this, you know. They were good, as I said, they were perfect to look at, but they were just dead in the eyes, soulless. And then you can see where this is going. You don't need me to explain it too much, but we get into the final phase. The quiet collapse, it was called. And that started from day 560 to just over day 600. So there we go. We were jumping 200 days in each phase, and now in this final phase we're talking about 45 days maximum. Population Let me give you the population. Remember, we did start this phase. We ended phase 3 and we started phase 4 at 2,200 mice. And we end phase 4 with a much reduced level of mice. Can you guess how many mice we're left with by the end of phase 4? We are left with a big fat 0, from 2,200 to 0 mice in 45 days. An absolute collapse in society within 45 days. The birth rate dropped to 0. Straight, just cut, bang, gone. As I said, despite ample resources, they had hunger for nothing. But we still shot down to 0, and you have to ask yourself why. And the population was, even though it was dropping so quickly here, it was unable to recover. The mice would have seen what was happening. They would have seen that their community was collapsing amongst them. But maybe they just didn't feel like it was a community anymore, and maybe they didn't feel like they wanted to build one anymore. So even when the levels were dropping down to under 1,000, no mice reproduced. They just let the burnout. They just continued to stoke the fire, which burned their own souls. Which is crazy. It's crazy. It's like a massive group of giving up at the same time. Singing from the same hymns of failure. The hymns of giving up. Like, messed up. So at this stage, Calhoun could see where things were going. It wasn't hard. It didn't take a scientist to see where things were going. So he done this really interesting thing. He figured, right, all these mice are now all thinking the same way. They've all given up. Their mind states are all torn to shreds. So what if I introduce some quote unquote normal mice from outside, from the outside world, from maybe from different labs or whatever, mice that lived a more natural life? What if he introduces them into this universe 25? Can these mice come in and teach the mice of universe 25 that there is something to fight for, that there is a way of living, there is things productive to do? Can these mice actually change the game? So he dropped some mice in. I don't know the exact number. He put some new mice in who would be thinking like any other normal mouse, like a pet mouse. And then mice very, very quickly became indoctrinated to the chaos. They couldn't stop. They couldn't halt the burn. They very soon behaved exactly like the other mice in Universe 25. It was like a mind disease, and it just spread straight into them. It was like a virus, and there was no stopping it. So even outside influence couldn't stop this collapse. It was crazy, man. And it was like Universe 25 itself was now infected, and anything that stepped foot into Universe 25 was inevitably going to drown with it. And it wasn't an illness, it wasn't a disease, it was an apathy, it was a disease of the mind, it was a giving up, carelessness, what killed 2,200 mice. It was a lack of purpose. A culture of collapse had grown throughout the walls of Universe 25, and it was tattooed into it. There was no way of stopping it. It was a contagion that could not be stopped. So, like, it's crazy. Every time I think about 2,200, a society of mice of 2,200 can collapse within 40 days. And in my mind, This isn't from the study. This is what I took from that experiment, is that without a hunger for something, or something to fight for, or something to target or chase, we lose our self-worth. Without purpose, we lose our reason for existing. And those mice no longer had purpose, because everything was just there, and monotony just swallowed them up. And just to circle back a little bit to me going from my addictional coffee and all that, it got me thinking, like, where are we in Universe 25? I mean, are there actually parallels with the Universe 25 experiment and human beings? Because I think that's what Calhoun was trying to get at. I think Calhoun was trying to see what it would be like, what would happen to humans if we were living in an overcrowded society. Now, we will never live in a society that's overcrowded and everything be handed to us like that. Because capitalism is a greedy motherfucker. And capitalism would never allow for everybody to just have everything they need, all their needs and wants be handed to them like that. And I'm not shitting on capitalism. I actually think that it's a good thing that we don't have everything just given to us. I think we need the fight, we need the chase, you know. But it just got me thinking, was he talking about mice in a cage, or was he talking about us in a cage, you know? So let's just run back through those phases in Universe 25 and see if there are actually any parallels between our society, where I can only speak for where I am and what I see, but humans, our human environment and our human behaviour, is it reflective of Universe 25? Is Universe 25 a mirror? Does it actually show what we are? And if that is so the case, what phase of Universe 25 do you think we're in? So let's just go through some of the phases. So we have phase 1. We got, what did he term it, the Garden of Eden, where we had a population of 8 to 50, loads of space around them, harmony, exploration, social bonding. I mean, that's like us getting dropped on, you know, everybody thinks they just want to sit on an island, you know. We get dropped on this beautiful island, no work, right? No 9 to 5. There's just this bar, this hut at the back of the beach. Some dude just giving out beers and cocktails. The cocktail menu changes every day. Cocktail menu changes to whatever you want it. The food is there. Dude brings the food over to you whenever you want it. Whatever you need just dropped to you on that island. And I think we all think that we would just chill on that beach for the rest of our lives and be content. And that would be phase 1. That would be the Garden of Eden. That's phase 1 of Universe 25, where we're all just chilling on the beach. But that's not the life we live, really, is it? But I think, as a little bit of a nerd for history, when I get the chance to read a little bit on it, I think after World War II, we built this. We built like hell after World War II. Like the amount of homes that were built after World War II was rapid increase. And the amount of suburbs that were built, and like in Ireland, we had council estates during the 70s and 80s popping up like a motherfucker. And I was born in one of the finest of fine council estates. I was born in Ballymun Flats, but I moved out when I was very young. So I would never say I'm from there. I think it was only 1 or 2 when I moved out. But like Ballymun Flats was like, as far as I know, in Dublin and possibly in Ireland was the first place like that where we were all just stacked on top of each other. And that leans more into like phase 2 or so of Universe 25, where we're all compacted in like that on top of each other. But the difference is we didn't have access to unlimited amounts of food and water and resources and bedding. We were living on fucking potatoes and noodles, man, and a bit of meat on a Sunday. So it doesn't really correlate there. But comfort did come though. Like we did have, as I was growing up, more and more comforts did come. Like, I mean, if you're a young kid now, man, you don't know how nice you have it. I know certain things are hard. I know financially it's hard. But like, I think I tell this story not on the podcast, but I remember being a kid, right? This isn't a sorrow story. It's funny, and I actually appreciate it. I remember when my dad used to come home on his payday, like once every 2 weeks, with one bar of chocolate, like one big bar of chocolate of a dairy milk, and we'd all share it. And that was once every 2 fucking weeks. You little fuckers are running to the shop and buying everything now 2 times a fucking day. But that chocolate that we had, that tasted so fucking good because it was scarce. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think there's a beauty to that. I don't even know I'm talking about this. I had my first McDonald's for my communion. That was a big deal. On the day of my communion, my ma brought me to McDonald's and I got like fucking Happy Meal or something. You know what I'm saying? It tasted good because it was scarce. If it was given to me every day, like Universe 25, it wouldn't taste so good. I wouldn't even like it. I'd be spitting it out. And that's what them mice were at, you know what I mean? So, phase 1, none of us live in the Garden of Eden. None of us do. None of us live on that island. So we move on to Act 2, phase 2, the boom where the mouse population went from 50 to 620. And this gets a bit more closely associated with us because we had the social hierarchies, remember? We had the people coming in and saying, no, this is how we're doing it. This is how it's going to be done. You go over there, we're going to be going over here. Much like our politicians. But they do it in a more sneaky way. They act like they're acting in your... They act like they're doing everything they do for you as the people, when it's quite obvious that our politicians are acting for themselves and have been for my whole existence on earth, because they say the same thing every time an election is coming up. They're going to change housing, they're going to change the economy, homelessness is going to be reduced, the healthcare system's going to improve. How many times have you heard a politician list those things off? I've heard that about 20 times now. And the same people, the same groups keep getting into our country to gain power and nothing changes. This game is rigged. This game is rigged. Those people are Calhoun looking over you in Universe 25. And that was a bit of a ramble, but that was a passionate ramble because I get so frustrated with that. Hence why you hear me speak about a media diet, because I cannot read that shit sometimes. But we phase 2, man, on a bigger scale. We had, like, I'm talking about Ballymun, but in you guys in America and all that, you have skyscrapers, you have ghettos. You've got ghettos, man. You've got favelas in Brazil. You've got people living like in very, very close proximity. And that's where shit starts to happen, isn't it? You know? Alphas emerge. Dudes running the streets emerge. Gangs emerge. Social control emerges. And that's when things can get messy. Messy, yes. But things still function, you know what I'm saying? The difference between Universe 25 and us is mostly a monetary thing. You know what I mean? We're always struggling to get by, and the fact that we have to struggle to get by makes us have to get up and go out there and do our thing. Hunt. From a primary perspective, hunt as in go to work, put food on the table. But these mice didn't have to put food on the table. You know what I'm saying? So when we get into phase 3 of Universe 25, where the population went from 620 to 2200, I kind of feel like we're knocking around phase 3 in many of our behaviours these days. And I'll tell you why. Because during phase 3 of Universe 25, we had violence all the time. Violence kicking off all the time. We had tribalism, right? We had gangs. We had hierarchies controlling certain areas. We had dominance. We had neglect. We had all that going on in Universe 25. We had poor parenting. We had depression, anxiety, all that happening in Universe 25. And then you can turn on your phone or you can turn on the TV. And what will you see? You will see violence. You'll see Gaza, you'll see Israel, you'll see Iran, you'll see Ukraine, you'll see Lebanon, you'll see the word terrorism popping up all the time, you'll see Al Qaeda, you'll see 9/11, you'll see 7/7, you'll see fear and violence, right? You'll see neglect, you'll see children being taken from parents, you'll see murder, you'll see anxiety everywhere. Everybody's being diagnosed with anxiety. Everybody's depressed. You'll see antidepressants being swallowed like cornflakes. I mean, look at the opioid crisis in America. Absolutely insane. An incredible piece of corruption in the pharmaceutical industry in America. One of the biggest crimes to ever be committed. And they pretty much got away with it. There's a cool series called Dope Sick, which you should definitely check out. Michael Keaton in it. And that really tells the story of the opioid crisis and how it emerged in America. And it's pretty damn sickening. And on a more like human, technological, ironic level, between phase 3 in Universe 25 and phase 3 where we may be, what do we have? So we've got our addiction to our phones and social media, but what does everybody try and mimic, model, or dream to be, especially if you're young? What are you looking at on your phones? You're looking at these influencers that project this picture perfect lifestyle with all the clothes, all the money, showing up at the best events, chilling on the beach, the best photos, the best videos, using all these great products, spending copious amounts of money. The beautiful ones, huh? Your TikTok and Instagram influencers are very much like the beautiful ones in phase 3 of Universe 25. The perfectly pristine fur coat, great ears, great eyes, great face. Those mice, those model-like mice who stood up on the higher echelons of Universe 25 looking like statues, looking like God's picture of a mouse, looking for all the fans. Well, we've got them too. We just have to turn our phone on and we've got the beautiful ones living the synthetic life. And they have one thing in common with those mice. There's not much going on inside them. There's no soul. There's no purpose. Aesthetically, it looks good. But when you break through that very hollow shell, there's nothing going on in the beautiful ones. So for you young people out there who think that those influencers are something to aspire to, 95 to 98% of the time they are not. I can guarantee you that. And that is probably one of the most important parallels between Universe 25 and us, is the beautiful ones reference. But I mean, it doesn't stop there. Because, like, how often now do you hear about a concern over birth rates for us? That the population levels are steadily decreasing in many, many, many countries across the world. Now, I don't know the stats on that, and I don't know if it's true. But that's what happened in phase 3 of Universe 25. Now, is our decline much, much slower? Maybe. Is it happening? I don't know. But it raises questions. I tell you what else does happen. Friendships. Friendships are somewhat eradicated, and segregation is more prevalent in today's society. Much like Universe 25. We are all within close proximity of each other, much like those people at the bus stop I referred to at the start. All in close proximity, but we couldn't be more distant as human beings. It's funny, isn't it? We talk online a lot, but we don't actually talk. You know what I'm saying? We say what we think people want to hear us say. It's strange. We doom scroll like a motherfucker too, and I know a lot of my friends talk about that. But it is something that I think could affect us negatively in the long run. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's strange times. And I could go on and on. I'm doing this kind of off the head somewhat, so I could go on and on with parallels with Universe 25 and us, but that was just some stuff popping off my head. I believe that you guys listening could probably come up with some better analogies, so hit me up. I just was reading Universe 25 a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, well, maybe I should talk about this. So now that you heard me ramble about Universe 25, ask yourself, what phase do you think we are in? Are there, like, people out there who have kind of given up somewhat? Are there groups of people in society that don't really care anymore? Is violence on the increase? Maybe. Do we look up to the beautiful ones? Definitely. The quiet, groomed ones, the ones with the hollow shells, existing but not living, you know what I'm saying? Is Universe 25 a mouse experiment, or is it somebody holding a mirror up to us? It's an interesting question. And if you do believe we are in our very own man-made Universe 25, how do we get out of it? How do we climb the cage, or can we climb the cage? It's crazy, man. I think in order to escape your own Universe 25, and your Universe 25 might be up here in your head, and in order to escape that, I think you need to find a purpose or a goal, and I think that helps you escape your internal Universe 25. But that's just me rambling. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. This has been a weird one. And get at me if you have any thoughts on this. And apart from that, have a good motherfucking week, my friends. This has been the Road Podcast.